How then do policy analysts and yourselves come up with new policy alternatives? The short answer is from a lot of different sources. Very often, policy analysts engage in creative thinking. They think outside the box to come up with new ideas to address really wicked policy problems. Think back to the TED Talk you watched in the prior module. The speaker advocated for coming up with new ways of non-traditional means to address policy problems. Beyond this, policy analysts try some tried and true means to figure out how to come up with new alternatives. Sometimes, the best approach is taking no action at all. We call this no action analysis. Basically, it's a wait and see approach. You keep the status quo. We often choose this because the root cause might be difficult to discern. We sit back and wait and hope that the conditions clear up, basically, that the problem resolves itself. Often, this approach is taken to give more time to the comprehensive approach, which requires more time, more resources to employ. Beyond this, policy analysts can engage in the use of small surveys. We call these quick surveys, where they speak with different actors in the policy network to see what tools they recommend. They look for consensus, or at least a majority of people on one side of a policy option. You can think about this as the idea of wisdom of crowds. Additionally, policy analysts look for real-world situations to see if a certain policy has been adopted in a similar situation and if it worked there. Basically, is it, or something like it, already in place? Very often, federal-level policy analysts are concerned with looking at what other American states have done. States are often seen as laboratories of democracy. They're innovators. Many states try out policy alternatives within their sovereign territory and at very little risk to the other surrounding states. If it works, great. Other states often will steal from those states in terms of their policy ideas, and so will the federal government. If it fails, other states and the federal government can look in and try to figure out why it failed and to change the policy into a more effective solution. Similarly, policy analysts can look for parallel situations or analogies. They look to see if in another sector, say the private sector, or if in a certain industry, maybe business or trade, if a similar problem popped up and what they did to deal with it. Finally, policy analysts just put their heads together and often will just spitball or brainstorm and try to come up with as many alternatives as they can in one sitting. They then will go through and evaluate these alternatives and try to figure out which ones they want to go after.